everybody. Thank you so much to the JCC for having us here as a part of this rich evening of study, as part of the first virtual Tikkun. It's an honor to be here, and especially to be here with two very dear friends, Rabbi Jeannie Solomon and Rabbi Mintz from San Francisco. We're honored to be here with you all tonight as we move toward Revelation, and maybe even toward the discovery of a little bit of what's needed to help each of us find the path forward. So I'm going to move us into the program, but before I do, I just want to invite Jeannie or Sydney to, if there's any opening words that you each would like to say before we move into our intentions for the evening.
Thank you, Jeannie. What rabbi's not going to take an opportunity to speak more rather than less, especially on Shavuot. It's really an honor to be here. And I think that this session so much speaks to people's interpretations of Torah is something that dwells in your heart. And so I think that this next hour, our intention is to give people that opportunity to really share that Torah and the Torah that might come from difficult times.
Beautiful. Jeannie?
Just so grateful to be with all of you as each one of us sort of figures out how we can receive the wisdom that we need. And all of us do that in different ways. So I hope that this session provides yet another way to sort of position ourselves to be open to what it is we hope to learn.
Thank you, both of you. So as Brian said, this program is kind of cross-listed with Reimagine End of Life and the festival that we are having now with hundreds of events between now and July 9th, addressing many of the issues we'll be talking about tonight during this terrible pandemic. And at the beginning of each Reimagine event, we like to read an intention. So I'm going to begin our evening tonight with our 2020 intention. There is no life without death, no love without loss. They are in constant complementary motion. But never before in our lives has the world stood so still. In the face of distance, illness, and isolation, we are here together, reimagining a changed world, kinder, slower, more just. We are reimagining the giving and receiving of love, the cycles of loss and new beginnings, and what it means to be fully alive. We are here.
So in that spirit, we wanted to invite all of us here in this session just to begin by taking a couple of deep breaths. So if you feel comfortable closing your eyes or even just softening your gaze, and taking a moment to release some of the stress and worry perhaps that you're carrying. Maybe it's also a release of whatever session you were in leading up into this moment so that we can all really arrive here together in this virtual but very real way. Remembering that for all the things that we lack tonight, being in the same building, we have lungs that are breathing and bodies that have beating hearts, and here we all are together.
Thank you, Jeannie. As we begin to experience and share what we've been experiencing during this time, we know that everybody's experiencing the last, how many weeks, months has it been? Today I wrote down March on a check. And I wasn't even sure if it was 2020. So the difficulty that we experience comes from a lot of different places and pieces. And as it is Shavuot, I wanted to make sure that we focused on a little bit of Torah through all of this. And the Torah that I wanted to share at the beginning on our journey is a midrash that I know really inspires and breaks open people's hearts when they hear it, about our journey in the wilderness. And more happened to us in the wilderness than anywhere else in our journey. And my favorite midrash is the midrash that teaches that in the Ark of the Covenant were the intact tablets. But also the midrash shares that we all can recall that moment when Moses comes down and out of anger looks at the people of Israel and shatters the two tablets onto the ground. And this midrash is there to teach us that inside of this ark, there were the intact tablets that Moses gave the second time, but the first broken shards were also contained in that ark that traveled with us. And it teaches us that somebody went back to that place, that holy place, not just Mount Sinai itself, but the place where Moses broke the tablets into 1,000,000 shards. And they gathered those shards because they saw that there was something unique and holy, beautiful and important in the brokenness, and took that brokenness and put it with the intact whole tablets. And those are the two sets of tablets that carried us through 40 years in the wilderness, and that I believe that we carry inside of us. And so when we think about the places and the pieces that are broken inside of us, especially now during COVID-19, during this time, which in so many ways feels heartbreaking and spirit breaking, may that midrash, which teaches us how important the broken pieces are inside of us, in fact, leading to our wholeness in many times, be something that carries us through this Shavuot evening.
Thank you, Sydney. So we're going to begin with some words. Unprecedented, historic, chaotic, not since 1918, not since the Middle Ages. These are the words that we are hearing over and over again to describe the current coronavirus crisis. But really, what do these words mean to us in our daily lives? For many of us, it means that life has been turned upside down. For many, jobs or the work that we do have literally disappeared overnight. If we have jobs, our homes are now our workplaces. Our playful, wiggly, and social children are not in school, or in most cases will not be in camp, and are trying to do school and live their lives on computers without their friends and teachers nearby. And our lives are both more constricted, we're not getting out much, and they're also expanding because the virtual world has exploded into our living rooms. But those living in our non-home settings are isolated and unable to receive visitors. We are concerned for our health and the health of those we love. And we are even grieving now in isolation, unable to hug and support those we love at the bedside, at the graveside, and in each other's homes. So with all this change and disruption, it's certainly true that many of us are overwhelmed and that raging winds are swirling all around us. And it's also true, as this picture suggests, that we are experiencing this crisis differently from each other, and sometimes even from ourselves from one day to the next. We are in the same storm, but we are at times in different boats. So the external factors, including our economic and racial and geographic vulnerabilities, can shape our experience profoundly and in different ways. And internally too, we know that we react differently based on our own histories, our personalities, our own fears and losses, our resilience. Some of us are thrown into panic. Others are less anxious, but maybe experience the crisis in other ways by getting really busy or maybe getting numb or angry. And then there are the comparisons. Some of us worry that we're not doing enough, and maybe we feel guilty about that. Others feel guilty because of the choices that we've made to serve maybe are too much, and we're putting ourselves or others at risk. And for some of us, the whole idea of helping or serving during this time is more than we can consider because we're just trying to get through these upside down days. And that takes everything out of us, and maybe we feel guilty about that. So the truth is that comparisons are everywhere. And this can make it especially hard to accept and admit where we are. If we're healthy and have a job, we might feel like we don't have a right to feel any grief or disruption against the backdrop of this awfulness. But in fact, this is a kind of a culture of diminishment that we're living in, which minimizes our own experiences. And this pattern of diminishing what it is that we are each living through can drive us into a kind of shame for grieving things, even when we are maybe healthy and employed. But we do have losses. And many of us are grieving things that don't make the headlines. But when we shame ourselves into pushing that away, we leave our souls impoverished. And our experiences actually can teach us, have things to teach us. So tonight, we want to ask ourselves the following questions. How can we name whatever it is that we're feeling and give permission to ourselves to be in those experiences, no matter what they are? Maybe it's the intensity of our vulnerability. Maybe it's relief at not having to go to work every day and we feel guilty about that. Maybe it's fear or worry or gratitude that we get to spend time with our families when we're sheltering in place. Feeling grief over life and death. And as I said, maybe it's over things that don't make the headlines. So where is our compassion for ourselves as these days unfold? How do we honor the experiences we're having without guilt, shame, and comparisons? And how can we allow our experiences to teach us to be sources of meaning and discovery?
One of the things that I've been so struck by during this time is, as Jeannie said so beautifully, like feeling so many things at one time. It's not so much this or that, but it's this and this and this and this all at the same time. And there's a short phrase actually from Psalm 23. And there's a melody that is written for this phrase, Kosi Rabaya, written by Rabbi Shefa Gold. It's one of my favorites. And I wanted to take this opportunity tonight to share it with all of you. As some of you know who have become Zoom savvy over the last couple of months, singing on Zoom is a challenge. It's hard not being able to hear everyone's voice at one time. My teenage daughter is kindly hiding in the corner here so she can accompany me for a moment so that if we switch parts, I have a voice that can be shared at the same time. But I want to encourage everyone as you allow this chant to just wash over you, to reverberate inside, to also use your voice, even if you're the only person in your home or if you're cohabiting with other people or animals, to allow yourself to hear your own voice as well. And the reason that I wanted to share this particular chant, Kosi Rabaya, is that it means my cup overflows. And oftentimes when we use this phrase, we think of a cup overflowing with blessing. You might imagine a Kiddush cup or a beautiful glass of wine, something like that, overflowing with blessing and abundance. But I think it can just as easily be a cup overflowing with overwhelm, with worry, with anxiety, with too much of other things. And I want to suggest that it can be all of that as we find ourselves moving through these challenging days, we have moments in which we experience both the abundance in our lives and also the challenge and the overwhelm, and that we can, like a cup, like a kos, we can hold all of that at once. So here's how the chant goes. Kosi revaya, kosi revaya, kosi revaya, kosi revaya, kosi revaya, kosi revaya, So wherever we are right now, whether we feel overwhelmed with worry and anxiety, or with blessing, or most likely with both and a lot of other stuff as well, this chant reminds us that we can be those cups, that our heart perhaps can be like that cup, always connecting us to our own truth, able to hold all that is arising.
Thank you, Jenny. And especially thank you for bringing your daughter's voice to all of us, because we didn't need to see her to feel her loving and genuine and earnest presence. You're a very lucky rabbinic mom to have any kid who would actually join you on a Tikkun Leil Shavuot and sing, not knowing who was there. So I just, that was such a loving moment to behold. And, you know, as a parent, I think that there have been so many moments, whether you're sheltered all by yourself, you're sheltered with a few people, or some people feel like they're sheltered with too many people. Wherever you are, there's real sense of loss, and not just LOSS, but lost. And how do we accept feeling lost at sea in uncertain times? And I really am brought back each time I'm in this moment of thinking of our Jewish calendar, and thinking of Shavuot not only being a moment of the gift of Torah, that it's called Zman Matan Toratenu, and so that it celebrates the moment of the gift of whatever that was revealed to us on Mount Sinai. But in the ebb and flow, certain and uncertain times, there is a consistent and constant flow of receiving. And the receiving is what happens in every moment that we share ourselves and share our Torah with one another, whether it's a place of certainty or a place of uncertainty. And I was thinking so much today of how important marking time has become, and that Purim seemed lost, the holiday when everything is supposed to be turned upside down for that day and then writes itself back up, that in a way, the marking of that time was we were turned upside down, and we never were returned back to that sense of normalcy. And now we're in this new normal. And that when we got to Pesach this year, we asked 4 questions. And as we come into Shavuot, I wonder, what are the new questions that are evoked from these strange moments? I have thought a lot about the uniqueness of this moment, and some of the questions that have come to me. What has shut me down during this time? What have I turned away from? And then simultaneously, what has broken me open? And in between those two, what have I found there? Have I been able to face that? What has shut me down and what has broken me open? Where have I felt that I have lost control? And then where does that loss of control lead me to? Where does it lead me? And I think so much about, I'm somebody who loves to sail and loves the sea, and that there's something about being in water to me that feels very normal. And even when there is a storm-tossed sense of the water, there's a normalcy for me. But when I look at this, I think about the uncertainty, and is going back to a sense of normalcy, that back to normal, even what each one of us wants anymore. I'm sure that there's moments of yearning for the way things used to be, but are there any moments that you have experienced for yourself in this last period of time where it looks like things from your vantage point are actually better than they were before? And the flip side of that during this time is the uncertainty every single day. Will I get sick? Will I lose someone that I love? How should I be spending my time? How can I serve others and also take care of myself? So that simultaneously we are learning so much in this moment of how we can cope with disruption and disequilibrium all around us, and where is that certainty? I also think that because it's Shavuot, and I did bring that little Torah, and the Torah is all around us, that we can rely on our tradition in many, many ways. And that when I look at a boat, I think, where's that boat's anchor? Do we need an anchor now? I think more that we need a compass, something that is guiding us, guiding our souls and our spirits on a different path than we ever even recognized before. And that's something that makes me feel a little bit hopeful.
I'm very touched by this idea of hope that you're bringing, and I want to tell you all a short story, which is that several years ago I had a chance to go to Hawaii with my family, and actually Jeannie and her family were staying down the beach, and together with their kids, some of whom were very little at the time, we had a wonderful day together on a canoe, in these beautiful Hawaiian canoes on the Pacific water that was smooth and glassy. And we went out to this point, way, way, way out, the edge of a cliff, and we saw sea turtles. And they were so breathtaking. And the next day I thought, I want to see them again. Wasn't enough, right, to have seen them once. So I decided I'd swim to this point. And I swam and I swam. And I noticed as I was swimming that the palm trees were starting to blow sideways. And I thought, I'll have a little wind at my back. And I didn't realize that I was swimming right into a confluence of currents. And that when I got near that cliff, but not close enough to actually reach it, I was stuck. I couldn't keep swimming. I couldn't go back. I couldn't reach the shore. I was stuck, unable to move. And I started to panic. And I started to hurl myself out of the water. And I saw a guy fishing way, way away on the cliff, and he couldn't hear me. And I thought, wow, I am really in trouble. And then I saw a couple walking on probably some little path along the edge of this cliff. There was a hotel on top of the cliff. That's what kind of cliff I'm talking about. And the next thing I know, this guy on this, what turned out to be a first date, I saw him pull off his shirt and dive off of this 55-foot cliff into the ocean to save me. And he swam out to me, and then he swam me to shore. So I'm telling this story tonight, I guess, because there are moments during the last couple of months when I, and maybe some of you, have felt lost and afraid and maybe stuck, unable to move forward, to move backwards, maybe like we're drowning in the turmoil of this current chaos. And maybe we're looking for that guy, that hero, the expert, the physician to pull us out and help us feel safe again. But in this case, maybe with the exception of Dr. Fauci, there really is no expert out there. The guidance that we need now, a lot of it is inside. It's within us. It's in cultivating our own confidence, in cultivating our own sense of trust and how we're going to make the choices and assess the risks and all of the things that we're going to need to do as we move forward. And also, I think, in cultivating our own willingness to be helped in whatever shape or form that help looks like. So what we want to do tonight is to actually start naming our experience and helping us figure out where we are and what it is that we might need. So Jenny, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes. So in this spirit of really giving ourselves permission to experience what is true for us, we wanted to invite folks to break up into small breakout rooms. We will do that for you magically. If you haven't done that before on Zoom, you'll just appear in a small group, don't worry, and you'll be brought back in a couple minutes. But this was really inspired by, as Jeannie and Sydney and I were collaborating and sharing, considering what we might bring to this session, each of us in our own ways. And I was thinking about certain congregants that have come to me in my home congregation recently, and recently had one woman, she came and she's got like a boss that's a raging alcoholic and abusive, and she's got 2 kids that are home that both of them have special learning needs. I mean, there is a lot horrible going on in her life. And she was just crying and saying, but I can't complain because we're healthy and I still have a job. And, you know, it was all so kind of unbelievable. So we really want to give folks just a couple of moments to have their own experience and to share what's been hard about this time without any comparisons, without any contextualizing, just to share what your experience has been, what some of the more difficult parts of your experience have been over the last couple of months. We acknowledge the fact that we're doing this in groups of people who may not know each other. But I want to suggest we're all having a deeply human experience, and that we can connect to one another even though we don't know each other. And the job of the people who are not sharing is just to listen, to really actively listen without judgment, and to share in the other person's disappointment or heartbreak, whatever the case may be. So we're not positioning losses and disappointments on some kind of hierarchy of grief, but really giving each person a moment to share without any comparison what's been hard for you. So Jeannie is going to help create the magic where we all find ourselves in groups.
Actually, I think Brian's going to create the
Brian,
magic.
great. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, so everyone's gonna do that. You'll be automatically assigned to a room. You're gonna get a pop-up, and you have to click accept when the pop-up shows up. Okay, anybody who's still in the main session, you should have seen a pop-up that is asking you to join a breakout room. So if you see that, please respond to it, or you can just, if you don't feel like joining a group, you can just hang out here and wait another, 5-7 minutes, and then we're gonna all come back together. If anybody in the main session is having issues finding your breakout room, let me know by sending me a chat message. And then I will try to prompt it to show up again by trying to assign you to another room, and that might do the trick. For those of you hanging out here in the main session, we're going to bring back the breakout group people in about 2 minutes or so. For anybody who just joined, we're finishing up breakout rooms, and we're going to be bringing everyone back together to the main session in about 1 minute. Welcome. Everyone's going to be coming back in from the breakout rooms.
Thank you, Brian, for sending us off and bringing us back. Wanted to take a moment, if you wanted to share something in the chat box, a learning that you took from the group, just from the perhaps your own experience of sharing in this way, or something that you heard. You don't have to say the name of the person, but something that you heard that feels like something you want to share with our larger group. So I'll wait just a moment and give you a minute to write anything you'd like in the chat box. So Jeannie said, it's so hard to have compassion for ourselves with everything we are managing. Yeah. And Peter Boker, staying present to all the unknowns is challenging. Rebecca Vorwin said, uncertainty, disruption into the unknown. Patricia Lurie, people feel that they would like to be able to do more. Nancy said, that was so beautiful. There's such community in this. Thank you, Nancy. All right, I'm going to turn it back to Sydney.
Thank you, Jenny, and I thank everybody for just sharing of yourself with strangers. And, you know, as a rabbi, I think often of these invisible lines of connection. Our Emmanuel scholars, Rabbi Lawrence Kushner, who's a great mystical scholar, and he writes about the invisible lines of connection. And so my tikva moments, whenever I'm in these rooms, I'm thinking, who's going to meet and get married from this? Who's going to introduce their son who's living in LA to the daughter who just moved from New York? And that I wonder about the people who, the hopeful stories of people who meet and get connected and stay connected during this, and the love of Torah, the love of Jewish tradition, the love of family, the love of blintzes. I was in a chat room with all people on the East Coast, and I know just from the stories how hard hit people, especially New Jersey and New York, have felt. And I'm in San Francisco, and at the end I thought, wow, I really miss deli food. And I know it's a simple thing to think, but I also miss, I don't want to say that they're not real Jews on the West Coast, but there's something really Hamish that comes out when you're talking to people who are, you know, real New Yorkers and people in New Jersey. And so that feels like such a gift to me that we're able to share our sorrows, but also share the joys of coming together. We talk a lot about not being in control. What we have control over and what we don't. And my brother is a Buddhist monk. That's a whole nother session for another Shavuot. But we've talked a lot about destiny and fate and what we really have control over and what's important to let go of. And he shared with me this very short sense of what Buddha says, which is you can't force a wave onto a shore. And we all know what that's like when you're standing at the ocean, and there's a sense that we don't have the control. There's something else outside of us that's God or nature, a divine presence that is making sure that things happen. So how do we relinquish our need to control everything and simultaneously find some balance in these moments, especially as we're coming together, looking at how do we find calm in the storm? And tonight we're all gathered wherever you are. We're all at Mount Sinai at the same time. We're literally all here together at Mount Sinai, wherever you are right now. There's that Jewish joke that says that here we are. You guys recognize that? Because if you ever meet a Jew wherever you are, you ask them, did you go to Camp Blaustein in North? No, you didn't. Was your father from New Jersey? You go down the whole list of ways that you think you know the person, and then it dawns on you, and you say, I know I met you at Mount Sinai, and that's where we all cosmically and mystically have come from, where we are and where we're going. And Jeannie, I'm going to ask us to move forward to the Mikdash Me'at. And this is a picture of something that has become very important to me in these last several months. It says make an altar. And as I said to you, my brother is a Buddhist monk, and so I've been very familiar with the altars that he has in his monastery. And in fact, a lot of times I have a big picture of a Buddha behind me, but I take it down for, Shavuot. But you don't have to be Buddhist. And in fact, our tradition is called Mikdash Me'at, that our home is a tiny sanctuary. And that's where you are right now. You are at home, and you can make that home a tiny sanctuary. And so I bring this as a grounding when I say that there's so much uncertainty and there's things that we can't. But this is in my bedroom, and this is in a very public place. And so I have a piece of Jewish mystical art from Sfat on the wall. And then underneath it, I'm very grounded in the past. My grandfather's talit. My grandfather died right before I was born. His name was Sidney Mintz, and I was given his name when I was born, just a few months after he died. And then a picture of our sons and all of the ritual objects that ground me, remind me. Someone in my breakout group said that they were supposed to be in Tel Aviv, but they're in New York. And a lot of those objects for me come from Israel, candlesticks that my mom gave me for traveling on Shabbat, Havdalah candle, but not all Jewish. There's a blue cup there that has Palo Santo in it, which is a wood from South America that elevates your mood and decreases anxiety. And I like to use that on Havdalah. And so when I walk by this, when I wake up, I take a moment and I think, how many days until Shabbat? Sometimes I flip over the hourglass, which is 2 minutes, and just take 2 minutes and look, and I see the abalone shell. I see the fossil. I see the earth that's grounding and just that slice of redwood tree. And so what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity in your life after Shavuot, if it calls to you, to find something in your home that reminds you of your own Jewish journey, your Jewish identity, something from an ancestor, or something that reminds you of how good it's going to be in the future, and put it out. Take it out of the closet, take it out of the drawer, take it out of wherever it's hiding. Run your hands over it, look at it, make sure it's visible. And if you want to share what that thing would be for you, if I'm sparking something in you about, oh, that thing that my grandfather gave me, or that picture that I love so much, put that in the chat. And we go from there.
This is so inspiring to me. Thank you, Sydney. When Sydney was sharing with Jeannie, me and Jeannie, this beautiful altar that she made, it was reminding me also of something that has helped give me a sense of calm and connection during these really unwieldy times. And it made me think of the mikvah, which is something that I feel very close to as a spiritual practice, but also directing our mikvah help other people access that ritual as well. And one of the things that some of you may know about a mikvah, this is a picture of our mikvah in Raleigh, North Carolina, is that there's this idea that the water of the mikvah is the water that flowed out of the Garden of Eden. So it's a sort of fanciful description on the one hand that requires a lot of imagination of how that water got from Mesopotamia to Raleigh, North Carolina. But the truth is, even scientifically, we know that all the water that ever was is the water that exists in the world, in the universe as we know it. It may have changed forms, been transformed in certain ways, but it's the same water. And so when we immerse in a mikvah, or in any body of water for that matter, even if it's in your shower or your bath in Manhattan, there is a way in which we can use our spiritual imagination to connect us back to the Garden of Eden, or perhaps there's another body of water that has deep meaning and resonance for you, just as a reminder that we are always connected to that source. And though it seems we may be separated or lost at sea or hanging out in that boat alone, that we're still always connected. So I wanted to give us a couple of moments to sit quietly. We don't have a lot of time, but we'll take just a couple of minutes. Just to close your eyes, and once again to take a couple of deep breaths. to soften any places in the body that feel tight or constricted. Take a moment to notice that amidst the unknown, which is vast and expansive and at times very scary, there is also, as we sit here, a kind of quality of knowing that we can experience in the body as we feel our feet touching the ground, as we feel our bodies connected to our seats or the floor or our beds or our couches. We feel our beating hearts. We feel the breath moving through the body. As we feel connected to all these other human beings sharing this experience, not in the same physical room, but in the same room, even still. So while we hold on the one hand this very acute awareness that there's so much we don't know. Even the experts don't know. We can also take moments to settle into what we do know. What is true for us? What is true in the connection that we feel with others, again, even when we are not sharing the same space. And so I wanted to share one more chant with you. If we can pull up that slide, it's another beautiful chant and interpretation by Rabbi Shefa Gold. And it's taken from a verse in Exodus where the Israelites say, sort of, I think in context, it's more of a kvetch, more of a complaint. But I think there's a real profound wisdom to this. We don't know how we will serve the divine until we get there. And I think it's a really powerful reminder for us as well, that amidst the not knowing, we can also cultivate a quality of trust, of emunah, of faith, of bitachon, of trust, that as we arrive at each moment, we will know. We'll know what we need to know to serve the greater good in that moment. And here's how the chant goes. Lo neda ma navod et yad boenu shama. 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 Lo neda ma navod et yad boenu shama.
Thank you, Jenny, for bringing us into that place of confidence that we will know what we need to know. And we hope that tonight has brought each of you closer to your own experience, whatever that is, to your own wisdom, and to your ability to even to seek help when you know you need it, because you know what you're feeling and you know what you need. And maybe that's another person or a tradition or a practice. Maybe it's God or spiritual energy. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's Netflix, whatever it is. But, you know, when that guy dove off the cliff, he was responding to my cries for help. So we are allowed to cry for help, and then we just need to be open to whatever form that help takes. So we thank you for joining us tonight. We wish you for you that you stay healthy, that everybody in your circles stays healthy. I am so grateful to my dear friends Jenny Solomon and Sydney Mintz, rabbis extraordinaire, and to the JCC, and all of you for being here. And we wish you a Chag Sameach with much love. Thank you.